For pretty much all of human history, getting old was just a fact, something you couldn't escape. But right now, science is completely flipping that idea on its head. It's a total transformation, and it's challenging everything we thought we knew about aging. So that leads us to the big question, right? Is aging actually inevitable? I mean, for centuries, the answer was just a flat yes. Of course it is. But now, well, there's a whole new way of thinking in science that's starting to poke holes in that old assumption. And this slide really gets to the heart of it. The old way of thinking, aging is just natural, unavoidable, kind of like gravity. But the new view, whoa, it sees aging as a medical condition, a problem that can be treated, something with real biological causes that we can actually understand, target, and, yeah, maybe even reverse. Okay, so how on earth did we get here? Where did this huge shift even start? Well, the very first clue, the first hint that aging wasn't this unbreakable rule, it didn't come from some fancy human trial. Nope, it came from a really, really tiny creature. Meet the C. elegans worm. Now, back in the 90s, a scientist named Cynthia Kenyon did something that just blew everyone's minds. She tweaked a single gene, just one, and managed to double the lifespan of these little guys. And get this, they weren't just old and frail for longer, they were youthful, they were active for twice as long. It was incredible. This was absolutely revolutionary. I mean, think about it. It proved that aging isn't just random damage piling up over the years. It's not just rust. It's an active process, controlled by our own biology. And that's the key, right? If something is controlled, it means we can potentially learn how to control it too. We can modify it. So starting from that worm experiment, scientists have basically found the master switches for aging. These are core biological pathways, things like sirtuins that manage cell health, mTOR for cell growth, and the insulin pathway that tells your body when food is around. And what's just wild is that these same basic switches are found in so many different creatures. We're talking yeast, mice, and yep, even us. And when scientists started playing with these switches in lab animals, the results were just dramatic. They've been able to get mice to live 50% longer just by tweaking these genes. Now, to put that into perspective for us, that's like living to be 120. And not just living, but living in good health. It's a huge deal. Okay, but here's the catch, and it's a big one. Mice aren't people. So that brings us to the biggest challenge in this whole field. How do you take these amazing discoveries and actually test them on humans? I mean, we live for decades, right? Yeah, think about it. How can you tell if some new anti-aging therapy is working on a 30-year-old? You can't just wait around for 50 years to see what happens. It's just not practical. You need a way to measure the effects, and you need to do it fast. And this is where the solution comes in, and it is brilliant. It's called the epigenetic clock. The best way to think about it is like the odometer in your car. Your actual DNA, your genes, they don't change. But over time, these little chemical tags get stuck on your DNA and they build up in really predictable ways. This clock can read those patterns and tell you your biological age, which can be way different from the number of birthdays you've had. So, because we have these clocks, we can finally test things in humans and see if they're working in just a few months, not 50 years. This has just thrown the doors wide open for actual human trials. So let's dive in and take a look at some of the most exciting therapies being tested right now. All right, first up is an approach called senolytics. The idea behind this one is actually pretty straightforward. It's basically about doing some housekeeping. Clearing out all the junk that builds up in our bodies as we get older. What kind of junk? Well, specifically, they go after something called senescent cells. Honestly, the best way to think of them is as zombie cells. No, seriously. They're old, they're damaged, they should die, but they don't. They just hang around like bad neighbors, spewing out all this inflammatory gunk that hurts the healthy cells nearby. And the early results in people, they're super encouraging. We're seeing drugs that get rid of these zombie cells actually improve physical function in older folks, reduce inflammation, and they might even slow down age-related diseases. This is real, tangible proof that we can actually step in and do something about the aging process. Okay, let's look at another strategy. This one's completely different. It's not about clearing out junk, it's about refueling the engine. It focuses on boosting a key molecule that our cells absolutely need for energy. So this molecule is called NAD+. It is crucial. Your cells use it for everything, making energy, repairing your DNA. It's a big deal. But here's the problem. As we get older, our NAD+ levels just fall off a cliff. So the idea is simple, right? If we can boost those levels back up to what they were when we were young, maybe we can get our cells working properly again. All right, and now for what is probably the most mind-bending approach of them all. This one sounds like it's straight out of science fiction, but I promise you it's based on Nobel Prize-winning science. We're talking about cellular reprogramming. The discovery here is just wow. Scientists can take an old cell and literally rewind its epigenetic clock. They can make it biologically young again. It's not just a theory. They've already used this to reverse age-related blindness in mice. Now, the huge challenge, the big hurdle, is figuring out how to do this in humans without, causing something dangerous like cancer. Safety is everything here. So when you add all this up, this incredible science is pointing toward a whole new reality for humanity. But it also forces us to ask some really big, really important questions. Like, what does a future where we live longer actually look like? And the first thing we have to talk about is the difference between lifespan and health span. See, the goal here isn't just about tacking on more years to the end of life. It's about adding more healthy years, more years where you're active and feeling good. The idea is to shrink that period of sickness at the very end of life, not just extend it. And of course, this brings up some huge societal questions. I mean, if these treatments are expensive, who gets them? Does it create a new kind of inequality? And what do we do about things like retirement or Social Security if people are healthy and working into their 80s or 90s? These are massive, massive challenges that we're going to have to figure out. But you know what's undeniable? How much the perception of this whole field has changed. Just 20 years ago, this was stuff for the fringes. Now, you've got top universities, huge drug companies, and investors pouring billions of dollars into it. It's gone from a fringe idea to a totally legitimate, serious field of medicine. So where does that leave us? With a pretty profound thought, actually. For the very first time in our history, we understand how we age on a biological level. We have tools that work in animals, and they're starting to show real promise in people. And for the first time, the idea that old age might be optional, well, it's starting to sound less like a fantasy and a lot more like real science.